Hello, welcome to episode 4 of Little Bobbins Knits. My name is Dani and you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Little Bobbins, and you can find the show notes for the podcast episodes at littlebobbins.co.uk. So I hope everyone's had a lovely week since I spoke to you last. I've noticed a few more people have joined the group, which is really exciting. So if you haven't yet, then do come and join the group. It's Little Bobbins Knits. It's on Ravelry, of course. And yeah, thank you very much to everyone who's joined so far. It's been lovely chatting with you, and I've noticed some people have started sharing their projects on on your project page. You can get the drop down menu where you can share your projects with various groups. I'd love it if you did that, because it's been so nice having a look at different people's projects. And thank you to everyone who's joined in with the chat on the various board topics. It's been really lovely to speak with you this week. So yeah, thank you very much. So in this episode, I'll talk about what I'm working on, what I've finished, something lovely but not new, and I'll tell you a little bit about my quilts, because I've had a request to talk about my quilts, which is nice because I love them, and it'll be nice to tell you a little bit about them. There is a thread on the group for anything you want to ask or anything you want to see, so if you can think of anything or any feedback about how I can make the podcast better, then do come over and let me know, because it'd be lovely to get that feedback or ideas if you can think of anything. So, works in progress. I'll start with these because they're not very far into being works in progress. These are, or will be, the Blueberry Waffle Socks by Sandy Turner. And at the moment they're just a bit of rib. And the other one is even less of a sock. So they haven't got anything blueberry waffly going on at the moment, but that's what I intend them to be. These are on my Higher Sharps DPNs, which are my favourite ones. And the yarn I'm using is Sparkle Duck. And I've had this, I think, about 2 years. I got it from Unravel about 2 years ago, and I haven't been able to knit with it because it's just so nice. I hoard nice yarn because I just feel like, yeah, I could use it, but inevitably the perfect pattern will come up, and I'd prefer to wait and use it for that. And I feel like this will be a good pattern for this yarn. It's got it's a little tag, Sparkle Duck. It's called Pebble, and I think that's the yarn base because it's a blue-faced Leicester and it's got Donegal neps in it. I don't know if you can see those little tweedy flecks. And it doesn't actually have a colourway, but it's this gorgeous pearlescent blues and lilacs and pinks. It's very dreamy. I think it's coming up a bit darker on my screen than it is how it is in real life, but it reminds me of dreams and oil slicks and just that lovely sort of transitional colours, if that makes any sense. But yeah, so they're my first work in progress. My second are some mittens. Now, I've wanted to knit some convertible mittens for ages. I don't quite know what stopped me. I think I haven't found the right pattern, or haven't found the right yarn or something. But then I was looking in my stash the other day and I found, this is a Regia. I don't seem to have the ball band, but it's a Regia 50 gram stripy yarn. I think the colourway is icing, but that doesn't really help because I can't remember the collection. and I made a mitten. Now it's not finished yet, as you can see, with all the dangles and the lack of thumb, but I still couldn't find a convertible pattern that I liked, so I sort of improvised. I used the hand shaping that's in the Linden Mitts by Jane Richmond, because I really liked that. I thought that made for a really nicely fitting mitten. And yeah, so I just knit a mitten, and then when I got to the knuckle, I started knitting in a different yarn. So I just did a little fingerless mitt type thing there for a bit until it got to the length that I thought would be nice. And then I came back and picked up the stitches on the row before I changed the yarn, and I kept the yarn attached, the main yarn attached, so that I could pick it up and this stripes would flow. Gosh, I'm having a really hard time explaining stuff, so I hope that makes sense. But yeah, so I didn't cut the yarn, I just carried on and then did the flappy bit. So they're convertible mitts, and I'm probably not going to put a button or anything on them. These ones are going to be for my mum because they're a little bit too small for me, and I need to do the thumb obviously. And I would like to have another go at them because I'd quite like to have a bit more of a rounded top. So I've picked out some yarn and I'm going to have another go at making those, and that's how far the second one has got. And I'm knitting those on my carbons, circulars, and this yarn is a little, I think they're 25-gram balls of Regia. I think they're my first Regia. It's just the pink one of that. So that's my other in progress, and then my last in progress I am in love with. This sort of thing really appeals to me. I love using up scraps, as I mentioned last week. I love sock yarn. I love socks. So this is just, and I love quilts, which is what this pattern was inspired by. So I'm completely loving these. This is the Flying Geese pattern, and it's by Lacey Volk. That's what they look like. It's a pattern from Knitty. I found it about, I don't know, 10 o'clock last night, and I all of a sudden got extremely obsessed. I want to make more in different colours, have a bit more planning about the colours of scraps that I use and things like that, but I just wanted to have a go with some bits and bobs just to make sure I could actually do it, because it's a different construction than I usually would do, because you basically knit the rib and then you construct these triangles one at a time using short rows, and then you go in and knit this triangle with short rows and this one, and so you're using short rows all the way and cutting the yarn after every triangle, so there are some ends to be had in there. But I really love them. I don't think I've chosen the yarn particularly well, but I sort of wanted it to look like a comfy, cosy, scrappy quilt, because this pattern is inspired by a quilt block called Flying Geese. So yeah, I've gone for the scrappy quilt look. And it's been really fun going through my scraps basket and picking out these different colours, because you need the tiniest nugget for each triangle. So it's been fun to have a play around with those. It's been quite simple so far, but I am a bit nervous about getting, the heel flap will be fine, but then turning the heel, I don't know how that works with keeping the triangles going. there's talk of, what are they called? Let me have a look. Quadrilaterals. So that's how it's constructed. But yeah, talk of quadrilaterals has got me a little bit worried. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so these are just scraps from my sock scraps, which is another nice way to use them, because obviously I'm using them in my sock scraps blanket, but it's lovely to be able to use them in other projects too. And this is Drops Fable, which I used in the socks that you'll see in my finished objects. So yeah, I would like to have a think about planning a more attractive pair, but I mostly just wanted to see that I could do it, and oh, it's so fun. So I like those a lot. So yeah, Flying Geese by Lacey Volk. I can't wait to get back to doing some more of those. So that's all my works in progress. I haven't done any squares on my blanket, even though I've got new yarns, like new little leftovers to use. That's quite a big leftover actually. I really want to get that in there and haven't managed to yet. But I do have a finished object. It's these. These are Skedaddle socks by Lena from a Wee Bit Knitty podcast. She offered these as a free pattern as a thank you to her podcast viewers, which I thought was really nice. And I knit these in Drops Fable, which is a superwash wool and polyamide. I got this when Wool Warehouse, who sell drops over here, they were having some sort of ridiculously crazy sale, and each ball of sock yarn cost about £1. So I stocked up on a few different colours because it's really good basic sock yarn. Works really well. It's hard wearing, and I love how this colour has worked with these socks. They remind me of strawberry cheesecake. And in the pattern, Lena suggests that you put in a little contrasty bit when you cast on. And so that the other one felt like it was related, I just decided to put a little stripe of the yarn down by the toe as well. And these were just really fun to knit. They've got the nice braid down the back of the sock that goes into the heel flap. And they were really fun. I haven't tried this heel turn construction before, so that was really nice to do. I love trying different heels and toes, and the toe was new to me as well, and I really like it. These are actually a present, so I think on the blueberry waffle socks I'm going to knit the same heel and toe so that I can wear it and see how it feels. But this one you decrease at several points instead of just on either side. So it gives you a really nice rounded toe, and instead of doing a Kitchener stitch, you just gather the last few stitches that you have left over. So it was really fun to try out a new toe and heel. I think the heel I saw was called a Dutch heel in one of my books. That's what I found it as. And I can't remember what I found the toe as. But yeah, I really enjoyed that, and I couldn't stop knitting them. So they were really quick to do. And you only have to concentrate on 1 out of 4 rows. So it makes it really nice, easy project. And I just love how they came out. I just think they're incredibly sweet. So really happy about those. That's my only finished object. So on to lovely things. Now, I love socks, as you may have realised. And the other day I was round at my mum's house where I keep some yarn and projects, unfinished projects, going back quite a few years. And happily I came across this yarn. Now, I knit my first pair of socks quite soon after I started knitting, so it must be about 10 years or possibly a bit more ago. And these are they. They have survived. They look a bit worse for wear, but they haven't got any holes, and they're good old opal, so they're standing the test of time. And when I first knit these socks, I thought sock knitting was magic. I kind of still do, actually. The turning the heel, making the toe, it's all magical to me still, which is probably why I keep on making them. But I decided I wanted to make socks, and I was convinced that I wouldn't be able to do it. So I remember we went to the yarn shop earlier that day, and I got the yarn. I think I got it in a kit, so I got the yarn, a pattern that just used to come free with the opal yarn, and a set of bamboo 2.5mm DPNs. And I went home and I started knitting, and I couldn't stop knitting until I knew that I could knit a sock. So I ended up not going to bed until about 4 o'clock in the morning, because I just had to know I could do it. It was very important to me that I knew I could do it. I just couldn't switch off until I had completed my first sock. So I have really a vivid memory of that, just staying up, getting to the heel flap and thinking, oh, how is this going to work? And then the heel turn, and then doing the gusset. Oh, it was just all exciting. It still is very exciting. So I didn't know where that yarn had gone, but I really, really wanted some for my sock scraps blanket. So when I went to Mum's the other day, I was having a look through these abandoned projects that she has a box of mine, and I found the sock yarn. So I was absolutely thrilled. It had actually been knit into the start of one of those 10-stitch blankets by Frankie Brown. It was a mess. It was just, it wasn't very well knit, but it was in that, so I undid the whole thing and gave the yarn a bit of a wash. And I can't wait to put that in my blanket. I'm so excited about it. I'm just so thrilled that the start of my sock knitting journey will be in that blanket. And while I was there, I also found this, which is the yarn that my mum used to make her first and only pair of socks. The silk knitting bug did not bite her, so she hasn't been inclined to knit another pair, but I get to put her sock yarn in the blanket too, which is really, really exciting. So I'm looking forward to knitting those in. They've just dried after their little wash, so I'll put them in there soon. So, onto my quilts. Now, my mum's a quilter, and she very generously makes quilts for me, and I love them. This one is the one I use as the background for all of my photos. So if you've seen my photos on Instagram or Ravelry, they're probably going to be on this quilt because I absolutely love it. I think it's about 5 years old or something like that, and it's pretty well worn. I've had to repair little bits and bobs, but I just love the colours. I love this method of patchwork, and yeah, I really love this quilt. This is an English paper pieced quilt, so you get a bit of paper, and then you cut a bit of fabric and pin it to the paper. Well, some people use glue now, but I can't quite bring myself to do that. And then you tack the material around the paper, and then you sew all of the little shapes together. So this one is made entirely by hand and quilted entirely by hand. And yeah, that's the start of one that I plan to do, but I know it will take me about 100 years if I even finish it. But that's, my mum has far more patience than I do. So yeah, that's one of my quilts. This one, I don't know if I can take it off. This one is made in the same way, by having the paper triangles and covering them with the fabric and then sewing them together. And this was a couple of years work because it's got all different scraps in it, which is really fun. I mean, there's scraps from projects that I've done. There's some really cute little Japanese fabrics. And there's fabrics like, can't find them now obviously as I'm trying to, but there's fabrics from dresses that Mum made me when I was a child. There's fabrics from cushions that we've got in our houses, and yeah, so all kinds of different fabrics in that, and I just love it. Mum gave this one to me for Christmas last year and I wasn't expecting it at all, so I was really, really thrilled. Yeah, I love that one. And that's all sew piece by hand. It has got a bit of machine quilting on it. And then this quilt is my newest one from Mum. And I was supposed to make this quilt. I bought this Moda jelly roll a couple of years ago. Probably more years than I actually think it was, because I have had it a while. But I love all the different prints, like this floral one. I really like those. And it's got pictures of scissors. And there are little birds somewhere and polka dots and butterflies. There's just all sorts of lovely things. These flowers, they're really fun. So I got this jelly roll. One day when I was here on my own, I thought, okay, I'll have a day making a quilt. So I cut all these pieces. Now the jelly roll, if you're not familiar, I think it's about 2.5 inches by 16 inches rectangles in a whole line of a collection of fabrics. So you basically just have to cut them in smaller bits and sew them together. So I did that, cutting them into smaller bits apart. And I thought that I sewed some together. I can't remember though. Mum's convinced I didn't sew any together. I just gave her... No, I think I did. I just gave her a bag of cut pieces of fabric and said, I can't do this anymore. I got so bored. I don't have the long-term attention for quilting like I do knitting for some reason. So I gave that bag of effectively scraps, I suppose you could call them, because they were all different sizes, and somehow with her magical quilting skills she managed to make them into a quilt for me, which was really nice. And I really love it. It's really cosy. It's backed with this really soft brushed cotton, and I can't work out whether they're cherries or roses, but they're very cute anyway. Yeah, so that's my latest quilt. So, I think that's everything for this week. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you for getting in contact with me on Instagram or Ravelry. Or there's the blog as well, where you can find the podcast and the podcast show notes. And yeah, so I hope you have a really great week, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week. Come and let me know what you're knitting in the group and things like that. That's one of my dogs telling off the other dog because he's grumpy. Yeah, come and let me know what you're knitting in the group. I'd love to hear about it, and if you've got any ideas of what you want to see on the podcast or anything like that, I welcome those. We've got a good thread about podcast recommendations actually, which I've really enjoyed because I've found some new ones to watch this week, which has been great. So I look forward to chatting with you again soon. Bye.